limits and levels. There exists a direct correlation between the limits that we set for ourselves and the levels that we actually achieve. I think the interesting part of that statement is the limits that we set for ourselves, not somebody else, but we setting for ourselves. Maybe somebody else sets it, but we tend to accept and believe it, right? And for me, I think the key phrase in just the few sentences that I shared is just this, right? The limits that you and me accept actually become what you and me end up achieving. And why does this principle work and how does it work? Well, I want to share with you briefly 3 ways how it works. Number one, the limits that we self-impose, right, actually diminishes our level of vision. And what am I saying? Self-imposed limits deter our ability to visualize. And therefore we settle for what we can see and we end up with the practical. We end up with the pragmatic, right? On the other hand, visionaries dismantle limits and they engage with vision. Now, vision is what you can see with your mind's eye, not just with your physical eye. And because they're seeing it with the mind and they're seeing what others can't see, they end up doing what is impossible. They end up doing what's not been done before. And this is true of every field, right? These visionaries, they don't just challenge the paradigm, but they change the paradigm. What they also do is they kind of redefine the rules of the game, and they kind of reframe what is possible and what is not possible. Limits end up, with you doing what's practical. But if you dismantle the limits, you can end up doing what's possible. And there's a big difference between the practical and the possible. The second aspect of limits is this is what happens. You see, our limits determine our levels of belief. Now, what you believe is what you will actually achieve. And this is a life principle. Be it in business, be it in sport, be it in music, theater, art, any facet of life, okay? It's your belief, right, which manifests in terms of achievement. If you have no belief, then your achievement is actually going to be low. Now, but the point is this: our belief is dependent on the limits that we have allowed for ourselves. Now, if you're going to have a lot of limits around you and you've limited yourself, then it's going to restrict you from actually believing. And when you can't believe, you won't be able to achieve. The third way this correlation between levels and limits, or limits and levels work, is that limits actually define the action that you take. Let's say, for instance, you've set yourself a goal and you said you're going to run the full marathon, right? 42 kilometers and all. And you said in 12 months you're going to do that. This is a really large size goal, and that's amazing. Now, because it's so large, it's going to require you to take a whole host of action. And your action could include, all of this, right? It could include you, first of all, signing up for a running class and signing into a running club, so that you learn the art, you gain the expertise, and you gain the knowledge and the practical training that's required to run that 42 kilometers. Maybe the action will include for you to sign up with a nutritionist to find, a meal plan that works for you for your particular goal. Maybe the action would involve investing in running gear. The action could involve rearranging your schedule so that you get enough rest, right? And that you have time to train. Your action could involve having milestone goals that you can go about achieving in this 12-month period. On the other hand, let's say you've set yourself a rather limited goal. And the goal is that you want to run 3 kilometers at a stretch in the next 12 months. Now, compared to the 42 kilometer goal, this is a very limited goal. Now, with this limited goal, you may not need to take so much of action as what is required in the 42 kilometer goal, right? You probably will need to look up Google and look up YouTube and find how you can run it. You don't need to sign up for a running class, so to speak. You can run with the shoes that you have. You don't have to pick up running gear. You can get a little smarter in how you eat. You may not want to get a meal plan that works for you. I guess you get the point I'm trying to make. Depending upon the size of your goal or the limited nature of your goal, that determines the level of action that you take. So even as you look at your life today and you're saying, hey, what action am I taking? And if you're taking a lot of action today and the adrenaline is really pumping, and because you're taking a lot of action, it's probably because you have very less limits. On the other hand, if you've got lots of limits and you've limited yourself, right? You're probably not taking enough action as you can possibly take. So as I conclude, I want you to introspect. I want to encourage you to introspect and say, hey, what are the limits that I have self-imposed on my life? Question each of those limits. Are those limits valid in the first place? Right? Because these limits could possibly keeping you from achieving all that you can potentially achieve. Now, I'm not asking you to throw caution to the wind, but I'm definitely encouraging you not to be cautious in pursuing your purpose and converting potential into performance. So I want to encourage you, challenge you, go beyond, climb higher, and explore the unknown realms of possibilities. Remember, your limits will determine the levels that you achieve. Thank you for watching Leadership Vocabulary. This is Rajiv signing off. And before I actually sign off, I want to encourage you to watch more content on my YouTube channel on leadership and faith.